Now, does someone like Paul, do you see people like Paul at all within, rabbinical Judaism, sort of, or is this something completely forward to what you're doing?
Paul is completely Hellenistic, dualistic. I know there are many people who think that Gnosticism, which is rooted in dualism, began in the 2nd century, Christian Gnosticism. It's not that they're not correct. They're not seeing the dualism that's all over Paul's writings. His view of the resurrection of the dead is utterly pagan. So just so the viewers understand this, in the Greco-Roman world, although they had a respect for Judaism as an example, was a recognized religion, a licit, licensed religion of the Roman Empire, and the Romans respected Judaism for a number of reasons. The one of a few things they really couldn't stand, didn't like, and expressed it is the Jewish notion of a physical resurrection. In the dualistic world, it's that polluted stream that Manichaeism drank from, Gnosticism drank from, Marcionite thinking emerged from. It's all the same thing. The idea is simply that this world, the physical world, was created by a lower god, by an inferior god, or even a malevolent god in the Gnostic view, and that no one was returning back to the physical body. The physical body is what you need to escape from. Now, there was in this thinking an afterlife, and people really looked forward to that afterlife, but the afterlife was completely spiritual. When Socrates, when he drank the hemlock, he was delighted to be finished with this body. Cicero, in his 6-volume Republic, writes about how we're done with this physical world. He was perplexed by the Jewish belief, and that's what we find in probably Paul's most famous chapter, 1 Corinthians 15, the resurrection chapter, where Paul is claiming resurrect from the dead, but not to the physical body that he came from. So that's what Paul was from. You mentioned Alexandria. Has anything godly ever come from Alexandria? Anything? Alexandria is where the doctrine of the Trinity emerged from. North Africa. It's not just Carthage, where Tertullian coined the term, but that's where the thinkers, the people who shaped the doctrine of the Trinity and who advocated for the doctrine of the Trinity, that's where they emerged from. In fact, at the Council of Nicaea, the stars there, the star councils that were there, were Alexandrian bishop, Alexandrian thinkers. These are the people that are advancing these pagan ideas that emerge as the orthodoxy in the church. So in Judaism, the resurrection is physical. The physical world is a good thing. We're created in the image of God. The notion that the physical world is revolting or sinful or is created by a lower God is completely antithetical to anything Jewish. So the physical resurrection is very important. In the ancient world, in the dualistic world, the celestial bodies were beautiful, perfect, symmetry. In the physical world, imagine, Neil, what it was like to live in the ancient world. People just died and didn't know why. People who appeared healthy were dead 3 months later. They didn't know what an infection was. They didn't know any of these things. So they saw the world around them as broken bodies, broken bones, and broken wheels. They couldn't explain any of it. So they thought that this world was certainly that was the world of Paul. Paul wanted to just be removed into the clouds in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 in the rapture of the church. The idea was that if you're married, be good to your spouse, but it's best to be like me and be celibate. And 1 Corinthians chapter 7, you hear stuff like that run. So these ideas are utterly antithetical to the Jewish faith. The resurrection is a physical resurrection. Isaiah chapter 22, verse 19, Daniel 12, verse 2. So Paul is what he's doing is he's taking Jewish passages and reinterpreting them violently, viciously, in order to produce his Christology, which won out at the end. Just a comment on this. This is uncharted territory. What the church will do is, although Paul wins, Paul defeats his interlocutors. I'll rephrase that. Paul's Christology was the Christology that the orthodoxy of the church would embrace, and they would reject his opponents. This is the one area that Paul lost in. In that, Paul is advancing the idea that the resurrection is a spiritual body. It's something different than what the mortal body that a person had. But the church would ultimately abandon that. It's the one area that Paul didn't win in. And we see in Matthew and Luke, and as we creep later in the Gospels are going out of their way to distance themselves from that idea. So, for instance, in the chapter we discussed earlier, in Luke chapter 24, it's very important for the author of Luke to say, here, Jesus has now appeared to the disciples in Jerusalem, and he's eating burnt fish with them. And he's saying, and look, does a spirit eat and drink as I do with you? Where did that come from? That's certainly not in Mark, because there's no real resurrection appearance in Mark. That the last 12 passages are invented. And then when we get to John, probably written 10, 15 years after Luke, and I'm being very conservative here, we have doubting Thomas, who's actually able to touch the flesh of Jesus. Like, where did that come from? That doesn't appear in earlier Gospels, in the Synoptic Gospels. So what they're doing is, in that one area, the church is distancing themselves from the idea of Paul that the resurrected body is spiritual. The church likes the idea of a physical resurrection, and they're going to go with that. That's the one area that Paul lost in.
There's actually quite a few verses in the Greek where he actually uses that word. And for example, he talks about gnosis. And I'm looking at this verse right here where he says, knowing all the mysteries in all gnosis, if I have faith as to remove mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. Now, what kind of language is that? Is that something we see? Like, Paul claims to be a Pharisee from the line of Gamaliel. Now, you're familiar with the teachings of Gamaliel. Does this make sense? Does this line up at all? What's your thoughts on that?
The word mystery doesn't really even appear anywhere in Tanakh. This is uniquely Pauline. It doesn't even appear in the Gospels. But this is huge in Paul, that there's special knowledge. Ephesians chapter 3, verse 3, Colossians chapter, 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 51. Paul says, in fact, listen, this is like so mind-blowing. In 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 7 and 8, Paul says that this is a grand mystery. The whole notion that the Messiah will die and resurrect, like, that's, no one knew that. This is a grand mystery. And, he says, if the rulers of the epoch had known the truth about the Lord of glory, they would have never crucified Jesus. That's mind-blowing. You understand what he's saying? This is very Pauline. This is one of the reasons why I am convinced, contrary to what most scholars believe, I'm convinced that books like Colossians and Ephesians in particular are Pauline. He may have had a scribe a secretary who wrote them, so there's a little different, some vocabulary variances there. But this idea penetrates Colossians, is all over Ephesians, and is all over the indisputed letters of Paul. The key is that there's special knowledge. That's what is the Gnostic movement about? That there's special knowledge where you can escape this world and go into better world, that's what it's all about. That this world is created by some lower God. Paul says that this is a grand mystery. Incidentally, if theology could be taught that there's a grand mystery, then what religion could be what religion could be dismissed, then why, and I want to speak to the Christians watching me right now, why do you reject then the Church of the Latter-day Saints? Maybe Joseph Smith, this is a grand mystery that Joseph Smith was able to find only through a special revelation of the angel Moroni. Then what claim could be dismissed? The Torah has in it a fail-safe system. Torah simply says you can't add to it or take away from it, and if anybody comes along and takes away from it, kill him, he's a false prophet. That's baked into Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 2. That's baked into Deuteronomy chapter 13, verse 1, or the last passage of Deuteronomy chapter 12, depending if you use a Jewish or Christian Bible, respectively. So the Torah is written in the following way. No one can add to this message, and if anyone comes along and tells you any doctrine that's different than what you're reading here, that what your fathers know, Deuteronomy 13, verse 5, 6, and 7, he's a false prophet. So you can't, the Torah is built in a way, it's structured in a way that no one can add to it. There are no new commandments in the book of Isaiah, not one. There's nothing new in Jeremiah. Isaiah and Jeremiah are both saying, get your act together, and this is what you're doing wrong, but there's nothing, they're introducing nothing. There's no new commandment, and there's no new idea. So this idea of mystery is all over Ephesians. It's all over Romans, it's all over Colossians, it's all over. For the idea is that there's a grand mystery that no one knows about. Now, think about this. You know, Neil, missionaries are going to tell you, look at the Bible, Jesus is there. His death and resurrection is openly in your Hebrew Bible. Would you accept Christ in your life right now? Accept Yeshua? You've heard this deal 100 times. Really? Well, Paul is saying that actually you would never know about it if you read the Hebrew Bible, and this is a brand new revelation of mystery that only the true believers have. If that's not Gnosticism, what is it?
אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נעשה בחפצו כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה